All right, ready? All right. Thank you all for coming. I'm Rosalind Tedford, and I'm part of the Library Lecture Committee here, and we are pleased to have with us today Alan Loudon from the Communication Department, whose specialty is political communication, and we thought having him come this most critical of weeks right before the election to talk a little bit about communication and politics in this particular election would be great. So he's going to talk for about 20 minutes. We'll take then he'll take some questions in hopes that people who need to go at 4 o'clock over to hear the State of the University address can do that. So anyway, I will turn it over to you, Alan. Welcome.
I left the topic vague because I figured this far out from the election we kind of know what was happening. I kind of think we do, but it's also kind of interesting because I think everybody's interested in the election. This morning I got up to put together, decide what I'm going to use, right? Let's start here. Last time around, in 2004, there were about 230 ads produced with Kerry and Bush and the people going after Kerry and Bush. That's a lot. We thought, my God, what's the deal? I record ads. So far, I have about 780 from 2 candidates. Not all of them, just the 2, and the people going after them. This morning, I got up and I have recorded, I think from Obama, 8 new ads, from McCain, 3 new ads of various sorts, and from their opponents, another 10 ads. But then I was going through and recording those, thinking, well, okay, we're in a viral world. We'll talk a little bit, from my point of view, but what's changed in political advertising? And because of the internet age, if you will, and a lot's changed. But I'm recording this, and then this Dole ad pops up. And I said, okay, there goes the neighborhood. The day has changed. This is the 3-minute version of what the 30-second.
All Americans are godless Americans because there is no God.
To the left. What happened to the left of that one?
Right. I need glasses. That's my
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Personal story segment tonight. This month, a new political action committee opened up in Washington, the Godless Americans.
That's the message here. There is no God to rely on. There is no God that's going to help you, and then that's the bottom line. Mythological Jesus. There was no Jesus.
You said if heaven is really a wonderful place, we should all be hiding ourselves now.
There's very, very little voice in Congress for it. In fact, there's absolutely no voice in Congress.
And I don't think you're going to be able to change that, are you? And
yeah, we fully intend to change it over time. It's going to be a
you
long
have
battle.
certain politicians that you feel are susceptible to being godless? Taking under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance, you're down with that?
We're down with that.
Yeah. In God we trust, you're going to whip that off the money?
Don't think we have that power, but yeah, we would.
You would if
We would in a second, because it's an incorrect statement. I don't think it should be a federal holiday.
North Carolina deserves leadership that advocates on behalf of North Carolinians every day, every week, every month, and every year.
There is no God.
How about you? Is that almost, some of you may be almost uncomfortable. Now, when you're picking from 780 ads, of course, like TV, you want to pick the ones with a little flair, right? So hopefully a couple ads we'll look at today will make you even more uncomfortable. But that one, as soon as I saw it, I said, wow, here we go. This is going to go viral. This is going to be big because there's something about this. I'm not sure if it's just a topic and the personalization. I'm not sure if it's just the music. I'm not sure if it's just the likeness. I'm not sure if it's fit with the narrative of the rest of the campaign. Who knows? But as soon as I saw it, so this isn't like the rest of them. This is all hell's going to break loose, and it did. So just before coming over here, there were 3 TV stations lined up to talk. Cheryl has a set of people to talk to right after this. Not because I know anything, but you know they want to talk about this. I suspect you do too. And hopefully I'll be short enough, even though I got 700 hours of video. Hopefully I'll be short enough that we can actually give you a chance to do that. But I say that for a reason. The fact that we had those interviews does not matter. That's ephemeral, I understand that. What matters is, because when you get old enough, you become an expert, not because you know anything. But everybody in this race is an expert. It's hard to find people who don't know a whole bunch. And my guess, everybody here is an expert, and so I want to at least reserve some time for that kind of thing, because people know what's going on. Part of the message here is that when these things exist in a different world now because of the internet, then they become part of the media coverage and everything else that goes on. The internet's pretty much amazing what's happened. Part of the reason you have 780 ads instead of 230 is because the internet exists, and there's a market. And in the market, sub-market is the 24/7, so we've got to show every ad, whether it's good or bad, whether it's web-based or not. And so they produce ads every night, sometimes 2 and 3. 3 o'clock in the mornings when you get the ads that come out from the debates the night before to tell you what you saw. Now they have ads telling you what you were going to see, and they have ads telling you about the other guy's ads telling you what you should have seen and didn't. And so all this has just got a whole dialogue thing going on. It's just different. Why? Because there's so many outlets. I saw this in the 30-second version of what we'll see on TV. And then I said, well, okay, I wonder what, as soon as I saw it, it was like 8 o'clock, and it had been out for a whole half hour, which in the political world is a long time. And so, well, what do people say? First, all the different, basically, news websites all have it. They're all running it, and it's just everywhere. And so this will probably, potentially, define the closing chapters of that race. Internet is a way, part of it's because of the internet. Okay, so let's see if I get out of here. Probably need to do that the other way, right? I'll show you another thing I got last night. You may have also gotten it. Very possible.
Are always close. But the nation was shocked Tuesday night to see John McCain defeat Barack Obama by a single vote.
We sure show them what a comeback looks like.
For many, shock soon turned to outrage as the New York Times revealed the identity of the particular non-voter responsible for the law. This private citizen has become a national pariah. Local police took the non-voter into protective custody yesterday at City Hall. Disgruntled citizens have been demonstrating ever since.
You're supposed to Barack the vote. But what happened? Nobody, the vote didn't even get Baracked.
I waited in line 5 hours to vote with an arthritic hip, and this mother wouldn't get out of bed in time to vote.
International reaction has been just as intense, even in some of the most remote locations.
Yo, meron ba? Di ka saan punta? I do.
However, the non-voter has become a hero to a small sliver of the population.
I thank you for your service. What you done for the United States of America.
That guy is a factor viewer. He's also a patriot.
Coming up, how long until Munich ran? Experts say it could be as early as Saturday, around lunchtime.
So, functionally, that is a political ad. It is a political ad that is running off of, in this particular case, Move On. Lots of people are doing similar kind of things. I put this up this morning and the counter. Here's how many of those have been received. You can see it counting there.
Oh my God.
By people with their friends and their names appearing in the ad. So basically, because of the internet, they have a distribution of almost 8 million overnight. I'll just get out and vote, essentially what it is. Amazing. Just truly amazing. Now, there's all kinds of ways in which these things get a life of their own. And yes, let me tell a little story. There's a second version, which is polar bears. This one will probably make you uncomfortable. You may have not seen it. We have this group, which is sort of a spin-off of Sierra Club or whatever. For some of us who are supposedly the bad guys who Bush liked in the film, don't know the difference between those groups, right? So anyway, so this group has $3,000. They buy in Toledo, in the urban neighborhoods, which would have folks look a lot like you, who would be, maybe their sensitivities are touched. They raise several $1 million by going with this one ad and then all the spin off the internet. And now they're advertising everywhere in Ohio and other places. And they're basically an invention of the fact we have the internet.
The more voters learn about Sarah Palin, the less there is to like. As Alaska governor, Sarah Palin actively promotes the brutal and unethical aerial hunting of wolves and other wildlife. Using a low-flying plane, they kill in winter when there is no way to escape. Riddled with gunshots, biting at their backs in agony, they die a brutal death. And Palin even encouraged the cruelty by proposing a $150 bounty for the severed foreleg of each killed wolf, and then introduced a bill to make the killing easier. Do we really want a vice president who champions such savagery? Defenders of Wildlife Action Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
More queasy than you were about religion. It's hard to watch that in a way. Now, when I first came to Wake Forest a zillion years ago, the department was in this building, and this was my first classroom. And it didn't look this good. And we didn't have any of the red jacket to talk for the full hour and a half, which they didn't come then. So. I don't know, and I basically came from Wyoming, that's the end of that story, so this doesn't resonate with me at all like it would those people who were in the suburbs in Toledo, but I'll bet you some of you were squirming. They raised millions, and now this group exists, and they're a player, and they're probably not, not a marginal player, just maybe they've been overwhelmed in Ohio and in some other places, and that's because of the internet. This couldn't happen, a $3,000 buy. They kind of did it with the Swift Vote for Truth group last time. That 527 went after Kerry, but with a not too big a buy and the amplification. But now the amplification is not just the TV; it's all this other stuff happening with the internet. Now these groups are all over the place. We don't see a lot of them here, although there are some I cannot identify that are running ads in the Senate and governor's races in North Carolina on both sides. It's not like it's a Republican phenomenon, therefore evil, or a Democrat phenomenon, therefore more evil, or whatever. It's not like that at all, because they're coming from all kinds of angles. It's just that we happen to notice the ones we don't like more. Example of one that has run in North Carolina.
Meltdown, foreclosure, pensions, savings wiped out, and now our nation considers elevating one of the least experienced people ever to run for president, Barack Obama. He has an ad executive experience. This crisis would be Obama's first crisis in this chair. The Republican National Committee is responsible.
That's kind of stock. That's in the Republican National Committee. The Democratic Committee's all got a lot of stuff. Some things aren't quite as stock.
The Apostle Peter teaches Christians to be prepared to give an accounting for the hope that is in us. We want to share with Christians the faith that is the source of Senator Obama's hope.
Kneeling beneath that cross, I felt that I heard God's Spirit beckoning me. I submitted myself to His will and dedicated myself to discovering His truth. Faith doesn't mean that you don't have doubts. You need to embrace Christ precisely because you have sins to wash away, because you're human and need an ally in this difficult journey. I was able to see faith as more than just a comfort to the weary, but rather as an active, palpable agent in the world, as a source of hope.
Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. Matthew 25 Network, Matthew25.org, paid for and is responsible for this ad.
And they're not the only one. There are amazing groups of liberal and conservative Catholics telling people to get in line. There are conservative and liberal Jewish groups. There are several other unidentifiable religious groups that are out there advertising as well. And a lot of that's happening on the internet in the sense of the faithful, whoever wants to believe what they're saying. And also a lot of it's getting up online. You can see the controversy coming about who's going to vote, right? You know, I mean, who's not being able to vote. And so Acorn became an issue. So Acorn, of course, fights back. This is their ad this morning. So this is fairly fresh.
It happened to him in 1960, in 1965, and again in 2000. He was intimidated, so he wouldn't vote. This year, they're at it again. John McCain and the Republicans are trying to keep him and untold others from voting. Tell John McCain, not this time. Acorn, voting is your right. Protecting it is our job.
The Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Little civil rights act goes there. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. We all didn't like Swift vote. That was real unfair. I presume the people didn't like
Hell, I'm
Will
70 years
also
old and
not
I
like
live through
this.
being a prisoner of war. I'm going to tell it like it is. I think I can say with authority that the prisoner of war experience is not a good prerequisite for a president of the United States. He was well known as a very volatile guy, and he would blow up and go off like a Roman candle. John McCain is not somebody that I would like to see with his finger near the red button.
Brave Impact is responsible for the content of this message.
Now, there's also a full documentary version of that. It's also, these get picked up by other groups. This is a similar kind of thing. Maybe this will make you less comfortable.
The relevance of knowing the details of his course with melanoma are very important. Another bout of cancer for John McCain while he's President of the United States would profoundly impact his capacity to lead.
Melanoma is the deadliest of skin cancers, and the chances of survival if you have melanoma spread through your body are very, very slim.
Brave Impact and Democracy for America are responsible.
What happens is these, even if they don't air, they force the conversation. I'm not sure that's all wrong. Sometimes I'm a defender of negativity in campaigns. I will do that because I think we have dialogue that we wouldn't have otherwise. Right now, you should be largely uncomfortable because these are designed for that. We'll just have one more level of uncomfort.
Senator Obama, why did you vote against protecting infants that survived late-term abortions? Not once, but 4 times. Even Congress unanimously supported protections identical to those you blocked in Illinois. The Supreme Court upheld the ban on partial birth abortions, and yet today you keep working to roll back this law. Call Senator Obama, tell him to stop trying to overturn these basic human rights.
Part of the reason that we have this impression that McCain has a lot of ads, which is true, like 2 or 3 a day. But actually, Obama has a lot more. And a lot of those could be an index of money, I don't know, but it also could be just an index of how they're doing their campaign, which is a little more top-down. There's also a sense that McCain's are all negative and Obama's are all positive, which isn't true at all. Obama has probably more, because he has so many more negative ads than does Obama, but they're a different flavor. They're kind of the old-fashioned negative ads. Let's lie about their record rather than them. So in that sense, we don't have, but they're also personalizing this thing, and you can do this with the internet in a way that you couldn't before. And so there's a whole bunch of ads just for particular areas.
Hi, I'm Chris Paul. I'm encouraging you to vote in the upcoming election on November 4th. Less than 10,000 votes decided the presidential election in 2004. And we all remember how close the election was in 2000. This means that your vote, every vote, can make a difference. Make your voice heard in this historic election. For more information on your voting status, visit voteforchange.com. Be heard, get out and vote.
And the voting things are just really amazing. One that I kind of appreciate, there's a lot of ads that only go to particular a lot of ads that only go to particular areas. Well, before you, this one I found kind of, this one first, no one's commented on it, I know of, it just sort of shocked me. I didn't know that this ad was possible.
Compartimos un sueño, que trabajando duro tu familia puede triunfar, que si te enfermas tengas un seguro médico, que nuestros hijos puedan recibir una buena educación, sean ricos o pobres. Este es el sueño americano. Te pido tu voto, no solo para mí y los demócratas, sino para mantener ese sueño vivo para ti y para tus hijos. Soy Barack Obama y lo apruebo.
I didn't know you could do that. Because I follow this stuff pretty closely. Now, some of these ads are just for particular areas. It's ads for Puerto Rico, it's ads for the, some islands, states I haven't heard of, and I would love to go to but never make it, those kind of places. This one is his home state, and it was sort of under the radar, and no one actually saw much except.
Small businesses create the vast majority of jobs here in the United States. Going out and reaching out to these small businesses and providing them help, that's going to be absolutely important.
We all have obligations to each other, and we're not alone. That if we see somebody who's in need, we should help. If there's someone elderly, then we should make sure that they have a life of comfort and dignity. Now, the people of Hawaii understand military service. But what's not an option is leaving our troops in Iraq. Start leaving, we must. The people of Hawaii understand we can bring about change.
I don't really like that ad. And I don't think I'm not close enough to know the culture. And I so I tapped my expert from Hawaii in class, and they assured me that the shoes, the door, and all kinds of things resonated. I just thought it was nice. So Bob is really getting big into it. Maybe you'll take his advice. I don't know. Anybody in the room who has their boss also in the room? Now, I'm going to, as you all remember how a lot of stuff got going, well, yeah. The religious, I'm going to go too long because I could go on, like I said, for hundreds of hours, but I think they're almost self-evidence of what kind of things going on. That's sort of qualitatively different, and part of that's because of the ability to target and go to specific things, etc. I was struck by this one personally, and there was a version of it that led into the convention in anticipation of the Obama Stadium speech. And this one sort of comes out after going to Germany, in which what was a triumph of a tour of Europe to become, qualified by presidents, which is what reporters do, so it's okay. And, so that was kind of interesting, but they hit it with the celebrity thing, and then they finally end up with this kind of ad, which is
It should be known that in 2008 the world will be blessed. They will call him the One.
A nation healed, a world repaired. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
And he has anointed himself, ready to carry the burden of the world. To quote Barack, I have become a symbol of America returning to our best traditions. He can do no wrong. Can you see the light?
A light will shine down from somewhere. It will light upon you. You will experience an epiphany. And you will say to yourself, I have to vote for Barack.
And the world shall receive his blessings.
This was the moment when the rise of the oceans began to slow and our planet began to heal.
Barack Obama may be the one, but is he ready to lead?
Here's this morning's version of this, and it comes out in lots of forms, as you know. And it is kind of the reason this ad gets away with it, which is kind of millennius, the Antichrist, and all this stuff going on here, that you could argue that's not much different than maybe some of those other religious ads that we were a little more or less comfortable with. But the humor, of course, allows that. This is the version today that's telling you how you should interpret his half-hour video tonight.
It should be known that in 2008 the world will be blessed. They will call him the One.
A nation healed, a world repaired.
Okay, you got to be able to do this, right?
Very effective. Fancy speeches, grand promises, the TV specials, lies the truth. With crises at home and abroad, Barack Obama lacks the experience America needs, and it shows. His response to our economic crisis is to spend and tax our economy deeper into recession. The fact is, Barack Obama is not ready yet.
I'm John McCain, and I approve this message.
Yeah, that's Some of the ads some of them don't even stay up. There are a couple that got up, they would Stephen pull down. And I'm going to run into your time here real shortly if I haven't already.
I'm John McCain,
One more
and I approve this message.
was put up and then taken.
Who is Barack Obama? A man with a political baptism performed at warp speed. Vast ambition. After college, he moved to Chicago, became a community organizer. There, Obama met Madeline Talbot, part of the Chicago branch of Acorn. He was so impressive that he was asked to train the Acorn staff. What did Acorn in Chicago engage in? Bullying banks, intimidation tactics, disruption of business. Acorn forced banks to issue risky home loans, the same types of loans that caused the financial crisis we're in today. No wonder Obama's campaign is trying to distance him from the group, saying Barack Obama never organized with Acorn. But Obama's ties to Acorn run long and deep. He taught classes for Acorn. They even endorsed him for president. Now, Acorn is in trouble.
There are at least 11 investigations across the country involving thousands of potentially fraudulent Acorn forms.
Massive voter fraud. And the Obama campaign paid more than $800,000 to an Acorn front for get-out-the-vote efforts, pressuring banks to issue risky loans, nationwide voter fraud. Barack Obama, bad judgment, blind ambition. Too risky for America.
And the operative word there, I'll call it, is risky, of course, because that's what's going on. Now, all that should make you very depressed. Except that it's actually carrying on a debate in some ways, and while this stuff that has to be picked up and actually fleshed out, and it isn't, there's a little bit of truth to everything. So I should like do at least one fun one, shouldn't I? One fun one, actually I have lots of fun ones, there's a lot of fun, but this is kind of, I thought was kind of funny. And it's not really aired as such, but it's another sort of get out the vote kind of notion. I was going to show you the get out the vote thing. Obama had like 5 of those this morning. Once is in the fish market, the Pikes Market in Seattle, if you've been there, and the people are tossing fish around, they're talking about, well, it's about time for some kind of change, and it's really quite charming. And there's a bunch of those kind of things that are with this sort of state motif. There are a series of ads that they put out there where they call the press in and say it's coming, and everybody carries it. There's a bunch that they hide, both groups. Actually, Obama does more of this in the sense that they aren't put out there publicly, and that they sort of exist out there in some world of small groups of targeting silos that we all live in, that we may or may not know they exist. There's those kind of ads. And then there's, you know, some of them get legs and some don't. So we at least ought to have some. Exclusive.
Hi guys, I'm Ron Howard. I want to take a break from directing for a minute and do something that I've never done before. And that's talk about this election that we've got coming up. This is really an important one, America. Because for the last 8 years, our country has been going down a divisive and wrong-headed path, which is why it is so crucial that we vote for change. And I'm talking about real change, the kind of change that will allow us to trust our government again, which is why I've chosen to vote for Barack Obama. And I say that not as a Democrat or a Republican, because I have voted for candidates from both parties in the past, and I probably will again. So, as some of you might remember, I began my career as an actor, but over the last 25 years, I've worked hard to establish myself as a respected director and even a serious filmmaker. So as I said, I've never done this before, and I hope never to do it again, but I guess you could say I'm feeling pretty desperate these days. So, as a demonstration of my sincerity, this is for you.
Hey, Paul. Hey, oh. Looks like you got something on your mind, Scott.
Paul, why are people so set on staying on the same road that's been messing us up for so long?
Well, oh, people are funny. Sometimes change scares them. They'd rather keep doing the same old thing that's been messing them up than change to the thing that can help them.
Like the time I wanted to fish for lake trout using peanut butter and jelly as bait?
That's right, oh. You got stubborn and wouldn't switch no matter what I said.
When I'm a grown-up, I sure would like to vote for somebody as good as Mr. Obama.
Well, if you stay healthy and strong, avoid any felonies, and stay away from the butterfly ballot, I bet you'll get a chance.
I just acted like an 8-year-old kid from a 40-year-old television show. Please don't let this be in vain. But I know a lot of you are thinking I'm following some liberal Hollywood trend. That's not me. And besides, if I was anything less than sincere, would I do this? Hey, how did your date go with the Rodriguez twins?
Sure, please.
Gee, Fonz, I sure hope our country gets itself back on track.
You know, I'll tell you something. 8 years ago, I thought to myself, okay, we got these presidents of the United States, Cheney, Bush, we'll give them a shot. Was I rude? I was so rude.
You were wrong, Fonz?
Okay, that's the word. You see, now we can make it right? And after we vote, one double thing. Get my friend Janet Kowski. She's got this girlfriend from Alaska.
You mean the girl who shoots moose?
Wait a minute. Shoots moose? I thought she said she was loose.
We haven't done those characters in decades. But the three of us agree that with Barack Obama, we Americans have a rare opportunity to elect an extraordinary president. Andy, Henry, and I love our country. And we just hope that we can earn an extra 5 minutes of your time to really think through this important election. Register and vote with your heart, your mind, and with courage and vision. That's all I ask.
The moral of the story has got to be something like, we all have access to this, everyone now. We can even make it up. In my digital politics class, there was this nice young man who said, I don't know anything about politics, and he was worried about that. And you know, won't take long. You're going to have to, and so he made it, I didn't ask for it, it's not an assignment, he's made a video doing a parody, because he watched all the debates, right? And, as a collective in several couple instances, and so he has a parody up there now on YouTube, which right now has more hits than does the Nader debate, which happened last Saturday. Okay, so that kind of gives you a sense in which there's ownership, playership, everybody has access, everybody is also a critic in a library. I shouldn't say it's a library because that can get thrown out. But we just have this huge archive now, and everybody has access to it. They produce their own material and become a player, much like the Wildlife Fund. It is a different world. The reason there's 780 ads, and that's probably nothing compared to next time. That's not everything. I mean, I'm not talking about the parodies and the personal ones and all that kind of stuff there and the other kinds of groups. And there are all kinds of groups that have these testimonies that are really powerful, that are going on out there. It's not even counting those. I'm requiring tens of thousands. Wow. Now, is that too much? We may miss the old days, but the old days are gone. And so that's my introduction to what I think is happening, because advertising has fundamentally changed, not because the ads have no sense, but fundamentally changed as a result of this intersection of market and availability and control and ownership, and everybody's a player. So I guess what's part of what's going on. So we probably have about 10 minutes before we start moseying, because I assume leaving here early is much more polite than making Dr. Hatch wait. And so we'll play it that way. Anybody want to? I'll obviously take questions, but I also comments is probably more appropriate in this world in which we're all experts on it. Yeah, yeah.
You know, some of these ads, particularly the one with your name on it.
Yeah.
Is this an advertisement anymore? Is this advertisement as in mass communication, or is this gonna be, by the time we get around to this 4 years later, I'll have an ad made for me because there's so much data about me out there already?
Oh, probably. They'll probably actually make ads that they'll send to you.
Yeah. How does, I mean, what does that do?
Well, it already happens with the web pages come up differentially because of what you searched before.
Right.
And we get different pages when we go to YouTube, and we get banner ads, and we go to places and don't even realize it. Yeah, so it's already happening at one level. But
because this is potentially possible even on television, with high definition becoming standard into next year. It might be possible to narrowcast this to that level of preciseness. Does that change the public sphere? Is the public no longer a public sphere, by a fragmented sphere of individuals?
Oh, Lord. It does both. I mean, obviously, Habermas says, right, we're siloed to a point, or there's a new book out called The Big Sort, which I read, that's just really persuasive about it's demographic moving in neighborhoods, because you move to places that you feel comfortable, which means you end up being around people who are just like you, and you end up voting not because you moved there because they voted like you, but you moved there because you were comfortable, and now they all vote like you, and then your opinions get more extreme. There is this argument that people only go to certain things on the web, too, right? But that's also not true. We go to all kinds of things, and there's selectivity happens, and certainly we go and we're more pleased with certain messages than others, as you were with certain ones here, one way or the other. My suspicion, but yeah, it silos like crazy, but it also opens up like crazy, and some things break through, and there is a sense in which we're all auditors and of what's going on and can do correctly. It's like everybody's a news person now, in the sense they can go back and say what's going on. I'm curious about this Hagen ad, or even the Dole ad. Who was really at this? Who really sponsored it? All the kind of things as humans we think of right away. We go, well, we don't just take it at carte blanche. We're not stupid. We sit there and argue with the ad in a way. We discount. And so, but now, so every news person that come up so far, I say, what do you know? What do you know? Who do you talk to? Who was actually there? What's the real story going on here? They don't know either yet. They're still working it. But, so I don't know, yeah. It's a giant town hall which would make Habermas pleased. It's a little tiny closet which would make Habermas unpleased. Both are true. That's how I sort of take it. I don't know.
Oh, I was just going to say that Kate and the Dole ads already got a cease and desist on them, actually.
Well, did they actually get a cease and desist?
Mm-hmm. Because what we didn't see and what you've seen in the actual ad that's airing on TV is that final shot has Kay Hagen's picture and then the voice behind it, which is the inference that she's who said those words, and she didn't say those things. She didn't say that, so they put out a cease and desist.
Oh, here's my libertarian side might show if I'm not careful. You go to court, you stop somebody's political speech. Seems to me, if you don't like the political speech, have some problem with that little amendment, which says the one thing the government doesn't do is tell people what they can and can't say in the political realm. And the corrective ought to be the fact that we're shocked and thought that was awful and unfair, and that they can answer it, not the court should intercede, because there's something about free speech there. Now you're going to say, well, this is a little different because we agree with them, or because it is a question of, true definition of good, because you didn't really say it, the implication.
But does that support fraud then? I mean, does that support fraudulent?
In the political realm,
I mean, is there no such thing as a political realm? In other words,
in the political realm, yeah.
Somebody's voice and if I could take Kay Hagan and put it in her mouth. I mean, there's programs that I can make her sound.
Kay can come back up and say, I didn't say that, that's a lie, and maybe win the argument. In a political thing, I guess maybe you could be the judge. You would decide which ones are putting something in their mouth and which ones are just suggesting it. Maybe you can do that for me.
I think there's a difference
See what I'm
between the
saying? I'm
ad
not
that
trying
we
to
saw,
say you don't expect you.
the ad that we saw and the ad that Jason's talking about, because the ad that Jason's talking about is slander. I mean, there's a difference between suggesting that someone's associated with something and actually saying that those words came out of their mouth. And that's what's suggesting by putting her face up there and having the voice behind it. I mean, it's almost close in this ad because the voice is a woman's voice and you don't see who's saying it.
But the 30-second verse is what they stopped, right?
I think, right. And which is, Jason is saying,
So you're
well,
saying that
didn't
is
see.
slander? You're
Yeah,
agreeing with Jason.
I think it is. I mean, I think that I'm appalled by that ad anyway because I disagree with the ad, but I wouldn't necessarily ban it from television, except when you say that, you imply that someone is actually making that statement. Just making the association, fine. Like, it's just negative campaigning. But I think once you say that these are actually words that came out of her mouth.
When you imply they were words out of her mouth, but that's a tough line. See, what's going to happen is the media is going to be all over this. Every station is going to carry stories and saying how awful this is. It somehow crosses the line. Maybe it's the religion personalization thing, but there's something about it that's different than others. But I saw it this morning. There's a lot of negative ads out there, but I saw this was going to go. This was going to roll. This is different. I don't even know why for sure. It seems to me that the corrective isn't court. Because you said it's implied. Well, that's how you heard it, but I mean, I don't know what that.
It's more than just like the William Ayers implication of like, oh, well, Barack palled around with him, or the Jeremiah Wright.
Right.
For me, it would be as if there had been an ad similar to this with Jeremiah Wright in it, and then at the end, you saw Barack Obama's face and only Jeremiah Wright's voice.
Right.
And I think that would be unethical.
It's all unethical. You could probably make an argument to me, and I'd probably buy that one easily. And I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just trying to say here's the other side of this issue is that if you really think that political speech is somehow different, if you're in the arena, that's somehow a different responsibility toward political speech, and if political speech is an act of the government, refrain it there, then in fact this does change that equation somewhat. It's sort of like, I think she's going to, the reporter, first thing you want to know, okay, negative ads work, don't they? Which is the common wisdom. And you go, yeah, sometimes, but most of them don't. Most of them are neutral, disappear, or backfire. Which do you think will happen with this one? Now, you take it off the air, and the news story becomes of whether you have the right to do this, and you're so whiny about it, you go to court, then she may win this, because the issue's still out there every day. If it's running, and they're saying, this is really bad stuff, look how awful this is, and they tell us how to interpret it, so every time we see it, we go, boy, that's unfair, Elizabeth. Now we're not so sure because of our politics, not because of our sense of the Constitution. Now, I'm not saying you're right or wrong or anything else, I know those answers to all stuff. I'm just saying,